All right, shalom to the 12 tribes. All praise to the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Shalom to all the brothers and sisters that are on here. Today's lesson is going to be called Polygyny in the Faith. I'm going to talk about pros, cons, ethics, and going to be answering questions that were posted up on, or that were asked on my Instagram. I'm going to get to as many as I can, but there was a lot of questions, so I'm going to go through them as quickly with as much wisdom as I possibly can, right? So, one of the first things that we got to understand is you are going to have to be able to put away your emotions and your personal feelings to the side when dealing with this topic, just like many other biblical topics. Put them to the side and deal with wisdom and knowledge and understanding and the words of the Most High, but also practical wisdom, knowledge, experience when dealing with this topic specifically, right? So that being said, instead of going to the first question, there was actually a brother posted something that are my sentiments exactly when it comes to this particular topic. He posted it on my Instagram through the question, but it's actually not a question, right? It says it's all about intention when it comes to polygyny. Most men's intention is not economic. Okay, and I think most people don't understand what he means. I know exactly what the brother means because we talked about this before when it comes to polygyny and economics, right? So I'm going to start with that and then I'll get into the questions. This is the definition of economics. It says the branch of knowledge concerned with the production, consumption, and transfer of wealth. The condition as regards to material prosperity. Okay, so you could look at it materially, you could look at it spiritually, you could look at it mentally, you could look at it pertaining to money, right? But the first definition is the branch of knowledge concerned with the production, consumption, and transfer of wealth. So when you look back in the days, or even in certain countries and certain cultures pertaining to polygyny and it being a big part of culture, it really doesn't have to do with what most people in the Western world think it is. Most people in the Western world think polygyny is all about sex and it's about lust and this, that, and the other, which I'm not saying that that doesn't happen. Of course, that's going to happen. But in other parts of the world and in history, throughout history, different societies, cultures, it is actually based on economics. It is based on the production and consumption and transfer of knowledge and wealth, whether it be spiritual wealth, whether it be physical, financial wealth. And I'll get a little bit more into that with more specifics as we go through these questions. Right. So we're going to start with the first question. It says, I've seen a lot of people post or talk about this, but is polygyny even lawful? So a lot of people asked similar questions pertaining to this exactly. And so we have to deal with, obviously, the majority of the people that follow me or watch my lessons, etc., um, follow the Bible or are striving to follow the word. So the first thing that we have to deal with is legality, or is polygyny even legal or lawful according to the Bible, right? So this is Malachi chapter 3 and verse 6. For I am Yahweh, I change not. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. So, the first thing that we have to understand is that the Most High does not change. Malachi 3 and 6, it says, For I am Yahweh, I change not. So, if he said, which I'm going to prove with scriptures in just a second, if he said that it was lawful for a man to have more than one wife in the Torah, in when the creation of the Israelites was happening, then he doesn't change just because we live in a society that deems it unlawful, right? So this is Romans chapter 4 and verse 15. Because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression, right? So transgression is going against the law. So it says, where no law is, there is no transgression of the law. So one thing that I've told many brothers, many sisters in the past and recently as well is, can you show me a law that says you cannot have more than one wife? And there's no law that says this, right? The scriptures do not contradict themselves. There are certain scriptures that people will take and try to use them out of context in order to say that it is unlawful. But we know that the Most High doesn't contradict himself, and therefore the scriptures do not contradict themselves, right? Which is going to bring us to the second part of this, the sister's question. It said, did the Most High approve of a man having more than one wife? What does Genesis 2:24 and First Corinthians 7:1 through 5 mean? All right, so we're going to go to both of these scriptures, Genesis 2 and 24, and I'm going to read them both, and then I will expound on it. So this is Genesis 2 and 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Right? So now I'm gonna go ahead and go to or actually let me break this one down real quick. So it says, therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife. Okay, so as I previously said, the scriptures do not contradict themselves, right? Genesis 2 and 24 says, a man and a woman become one flesh. But anytime a man inserts himself into a woman, has sex with a woman, aren't they one flesh at that point in time? So we can't take this single verse and add anything extra to it by saying, see, this is proof that the Most High does not allow a man to have more than one wife, right? Because there's a strict and written penalty for us adding onto the word, right? And actually, let me get that real quick. It's Revelation 22 and 18, I believe. All right, Revelation 22 and 18, it says, for I testify unto every man that heareth the words of this prophecy of this book, if any man shall add unto these things, the Most High shall add unto him the plagues that are written in this book. So anytime we add our own opinion or we add anything to the word, we have to understand that it's a very bad judgment written. A lot of plagues and curses will come upon you for doing such, right? So this is also Proverbs 30 and 6. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 6. Add thou not unto his words, lest he reprove thee, and thou be found a liar. So just making the point that we can't add unto the word in order to, insert our opinions on the scriptures, right? So when we understand that there are specific biblical laws on how to deal with multiple or more than one wife, we can't run to other verses and insert our opinions by saying it is therefore unlawful, right? Especially because if you really think about it and you look into it, most people don't know or haven't studied enough to understand that the book of Genesis, it is a part of the Torah, right? Which the Torah is the law. But most people, most scholars agree, and most brothers in the faith that have been experienced in these years into it will agree that Genesis was actually written last out of the Torah, right? It was written after Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, right? And Genesis 31 or 36:31 is actually an example of this. I'll just get one example because I know brothers and sisters, some brothers and sisters are going to say, what do you mean, right? Genesis 36 and 31, it says, and these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom before there reigned any king over the children of Israel, right? So in Genesis, it's talking about that these kings reigned the land of Edom before any king reigned over the children of Israel. How did they know that? If Genesis was written before all these kings of Israel, that's why Kings, the book of First Kings, Second Kings is talking about the kings of Israel, right? But I digress on that. So if there was laws given to Israel on how to deal with multiple wives, and I'm gonna get one real quick, Exodus 21 and 10, right? If there is laws given to Israel on how to deal with multiple wives before the Israelites even read Genesis, right? Then we know for a fact that having two wives, for example, was lawful. And the case in point for that, the perfect case in point is Jacob, who is the father, the patriarch or forefather of Israel, having two wives and two concubines that birthed the chosen nation of Israel, right? So yes, it is lawful, but if done correctly, right? And this is Exodus chapter 21 and verse 10. Exodus 21 and 10. If he take him another wife, her food, her raiment, and her duty of marriage shall he not diminish. So if a man is to take another wife, there are laws saying he cannot decrease or diminish the first wife's food, her raiment, clothing, her duty of marriage, meaning providing for her sexually. So this is clearly a law stating how to deal with having another wife, right? But now that being said, it is lawful, but the thing is, only if it's done correctly, right? Because how many men can provide for multiple wives food, which is not only physical food, it's also spiritual food, mental food, teaching of the scriptures, raiment, which is clothing, but also that's protection, right? That's a covering, that's a home, and duty of marriage. There's a lot of men that cannot provide for multiple women sexually. I was looking at the numbers because I've been reading a couple of books. Which one of the books I'm gonna actually read from today is the Polygamous Papers by Brother Hondo Solomon. I'll get into a couple little excerpts or quotes here and there just to get another perspective on it. I've also been reading a couple other books on the topic, but the point is, many men in this day and age, especially just that last one, duty of marriage, which is sexually, the numbers for actually, let me get it real quick, for erectile dysfunction, right, are ridiculous, especially in the United States, right? So just based off of that one alone, many men wouldn't be able to lawfully provide for their women, right? So it says up to 20 million men in the United States are heavily affected by erectile dysfunction. That's just one. But then when you talk about financial dysfunction, spiritual dysfunction, uh, mental or emotional dysfunction, a lot of men, it wouldn't be expedient or profitable for most men in these times to have multiple wives, right? So I'm gonna go to the comments real quick before I jump to the next verse. Is a woman bound to an abuser? She still can't remarry, or is that her lot? If you want to DM me on that, sis, and I'll get back to you. I'm gonna try and stay on topic today. Shalom, family. Need your help and prayers. Currently homeless. Khan. I'll definitely keep you in my prayer. Shawal Yisrael. May I come on StreamYard to present my petition? I'm gonna try and stay on topic today. IUI teaches a woman can divorce, but scripture it was Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai Barakatah, living in truth, Yahweh Shai, Barlos Rivers, Shalom, Shalom, Ak, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai Barakatah. Most High willing, everything's going good with you, right? So I'm going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, which the sister also asked about, pertaining to the legality of polygyny according to the Bible. So 1 Corinthians 7 and 1, it says, "Now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman." So the first thing we have to understand is that Corinthians is Paul writing a letter to the church in Corinth. Okay, this is a letter, which is why he says, "Now concerning the things that you wrote to me." We don't know what the church of Corinth or the members of the church of Corinth asked Paul. We don't know exactly what they asked, right? But let's still read and see what he said. He said, "Nevertheless, to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife, and let every woman have her own husband. Let the husband render unto the wife due benevolence," meaning goodwill, "and likewise also the wife unto the husband. The wife hath not power of her own body, but the husband, and likewise also the husband hath not power of his own body, but the wife." Verse 5, "Defraud ye not one the other, except it be with consent for a time, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer, and come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency." So a lot of people use verse 2, which again in verse 1, we have to understand Paul is writing back. It says, "Now concerning the things whereof ye wrote unto me." He's writing back to them, right? He says, "Let every man have his own wife, and every woman have her own husband." So a lot of people will take this one verse and say, you see, they say every man should have his own wife. So that means one wife. It means he can't have more than one wife, right? But we have to understand, number one, like I said, he's writing a letter back to the church of Corinth, number one. Number two, if we would read, I know the sister only asked about 1 through 5, but if we read verse 6 is very important. It says, "But I speak this by permission and not of commandment." So Paul says this multiple times. He'll say, "I'm speaking by permission, not of commandments," where it says to avoid fornication, let every man have his own wife. Is it a law that says every man has to be married and have one wife? No, that's not a law. And which is why he says, "I speak this by permission and not of commandment," right? But getting back to the initial question, right, was I've seen a lot of people post and talk about this. Is polygyny even lawful? It is lawful, but again, it is not expedient for everybody, right? And I'm going to get 1 Corinthians 6 and 12, and then we're going to jump to the next question. 1 Corinthians 6 and 12, "All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any." So meaning everything that there's no law, like we read in Romans 4 and 15, where no law is, there is no transgression of the law. So here it says, "All things are lawful unto me." If there's no law against it, then it's lawful. But all things are not expedient. Expedient means profitable, right? So to a lot of brothers and even sisters, polygyny is being a part of a polygamous household may not be profitable. Okay? So let's jump to the second question. It says, what have before getting a second wife? And I love this question because it's not so. One thing that's mentioned a few times in the book that I was mentioning, the polygamous papers, right, is that the brother says, if it was just about sex, the man wouldn't just marry them. How often or how prevalent do you see people out in the world just sleeping around, just having sex with random people, fornicating, right, and not seeing it as marriage, and they just have sexual partner after sexual partner? It's all the time, right? If you work around people, I'm sure you hear about it. If you go to school, you hear about it. If you're on social media, you see it, right? So if it was just about sex, the man wouldn't just marry them. For a lot of people, that's true. However, there are certain men that may want more than one wife, but that doesn't mean that he can lead and provide for them properly, right? It's similar to when a man may want to run $1 million business, for example, right? But if he doesn't have the skills, he doesn't have the knowledge, he doesn't have the qualifications to do so, then should somebody just hand over their business to him just because he really wants to do it, he really wants to run that business, and he thinks that he can? Should they just hand over that $1 million business or let him run it? Of course not, right? So this is why the scriptures say that we're supposed to prove all things, right? First Thessalonians 5:21, it says, prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. So us as men, all throughout life, specifically men, we are in a constant state of trying to prove ourselves, right? And to be with a man that you know is keeping the commandments is something that sisters, because I believe it was a sister that had asked this question, right? Prerequisites before getting a second wife. You have to know that that man has been keeping the commandments, right? This is Sirach 32 and 17. It says, oh, Salakia, 37 and 12. 37 and 12. It says, but be continually with a godly man whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou shalt miscarry. Right? So when you're thinking of prerequisites, or qualifiers for a man to have more than one wife, the first thing is, of course, he needs to have the right qualifications, and one of them is you have to know that he has been keeping the commandments, right? Because anybody can say anything that sounds it. First should have a successful marriage with his first wife, and that should kind of be common sense, right? His and his first wife's marriage is in order, is according to the word, before he's bringing in another wife, right? Because if not, the problems that he has with the first wife are only going to be they're going to be magnified when he brings in another wife, right? Let's say he argues with the first wife all the time. Imagine how much worse it's going to be with another woman in the house, seeing it and hearing it and watching all this, for example, right? It's only going to breed resentment and jealousy and strife between the two wives, right? Especially if one, say one of the wives has this type of out of order attitude or issues with the husband, and then the other one doesn't, right? So that's definitely the a big one in my understanding and practically thinking, is that he should already have a successful marriage in the word, according to the word, with the first wife, right? That's like, if it wouldn't make sense if you start two businesses and your first two more businesses and your first business is just crumbling. You know what I mean? So another prerequisite, in my opinion, is that the man has to be able to rule his spirit, especially his emotions, right? And again, he has to have a track record of doing this, because I've seen a lot of men and even women in a courting phase put on a real good poker face, put on a real good mask. They got different masks, right? Or they learn their lines well, right? But eventually, the thing is, the more someone's acting, eventually, the longer you're around them, right? If you're not hasty to credit them, they're going to start forgetting their lines, so to speak, right? So a man has to be able to rule his spirit, especially his emotions. And again, he has to consistently show that, have a track record of doing so. Because as a man, he is the center of the household, right? He's the leader. And in turn, the man has to bring a sense of security and grounding to the wives and to the children, right? And I know this because I have one son and I got five children, right? It's a lot of feminine energy in my home, right? So the man has to provide a sense of grounding and security, which he cannot do if he's moving off of emotions, right? Because as the weaker vessel, the woman tends to do that far more often than the man, right? And then, of course, um, he has to be able to provide financially as well, right? First Timothy, let me get First Timothy 5:8 real quick. This is First Timothy 5:8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. An infidel is a non-believer, right? So if a man is not providing for his own household, he's denying the faith in general, and he's worse than a non-believer, because a man that says he believes the word of the Most High, and he what he's really saying is he's a representative of the Most High in his household, right? So if you're saying that or claiming that, and then you're not providing for your household, that would be like the Most High not providing for us when we're following after him, right? That would never happen. But that's what a man does when he claims to be in the faith or in the truth and doesn't provide for his own household, right? So that's another big one. He has to provide financially. He has to be able to provide by law, like we read earlier, in Exodus 21:10. By law, he's supposed to provide their food, their clothes, and their duty of marriage. So all these things, he should have a good track record of being able to do before marrying and before bringing in another wife, right? He should be, this is something that me and another brother were talking about yesterday. Israelites, for the most part, when they were following after the Most High, not falling into idolatry, they were self-sufficient people, right? They tried to depend on themselves as much as possible. So a man, he should be a self-sufficient man, not depending on others to live, right? And then as he gets a wife or he gets another wife, they should add on to that self-sufficiency, right? For example, through sewing clothes, through cooking, through growing food, through raising animals. All these things, which goes back to economics, which I read at the very beginning, right? All these things can save money for his house and can even make money for his household, for his household, right? Because all these things can be sold in order to add more economic. Rock is Sirach chapter 40 and verse 29. Shalom, shalom, warrior's dream. Peace and blessings to you as well. Right? So this is Sirach chapter 40 and verse 29. It says, "The life of him that dependeth on another man's table is not to be counted for a life." I'm just going to read that first part for now. The life of him that dependeth on another man's table is not to be counted for a life. So as a man, you should be as self-sufficient as possible, right? You shouldn't be depending on all these other people for to live, right? And in my opinion and understanding, and even people in the world that I knew, my father figure growing up, my uncle, um, he basically made this clear to me as well. You're not really a man until you can provide for yourself and your household, right? So all of these things, I'm gonna jump to the next question. All of these things should answer the question: what prerequisites do you think a man should have before getting a second wife? He should be able to provide and have a track record of providing, of keeping the commandments, right? He should, in my opinion, practically speaking, have a successful marriage with his first wife, for sure, right? And he needs to be able to rule his spirit, not be an emotional man. Okay, and this is Sirach 6 and 7. It says, "If thou wouldest get a friend, prove him first, and be not hasty to credit him." Right, so that's very important. You can't be hasty to credit people. Um, when it comes to courting situations, as I've been in the truth around 6 years, when it comes to courting, especially, the majority of the time, probably 9 times out of 10, or even more often than that, the reason why a marriage ends up out of order or not going well is because the proving process was too quick and people were too hasty to credit, right? So just to throw that in there. Gonna jump to the next question. Malak Mar Issachar, shalom, shalom. Hope all is well with you and your house. Question 3: how long should an Israelite man be in the truth before trying to take another wife? So, just this kind of goes along with the last question, right? It really comes down to, I would say, experience, right? Let me get Sirach. I know it's 34. I brought these couple verses out many times on previous lives. This is Sirach 34 and verse 9. Okay, it says, "A man that hath traveled knoweth many things, and he that hath much experience will declare wisdom." I'm going to read verse 10 as well. "He that hath no experience knoweth little, but he that hath traveled is full of prudence." So verse 9 says that when a man has a lot of experience, it's going to lead to wisdom, right? And it says, he that has little experience knows a little bit, right? So again, like I said, it really does come down to a track record of being able to have a successful marriage in the first place, and then it also comes down to experience, right? And then not just experience, I would say successful experience, meaning having a good marriage for an extended period of time to where he's learned and showed that he can lead and move through wisdom in many different situations, right? Because many, you may, let's say you're in a courting process with a woman and or a man and a woman, and everything's going good, but there's certain situations, there's certain things that you will not experience until you're actually married. And through that experience, more wisdom and knowledge and understanding is going to be gained, right? So many men may want another wife. I know because every time I post something about polygamy, it's like a bunch of brothers just, either hitting me up or things of that nature. Many people may want another wife, which is more responsibility, which a lot of people don't realize. But to do it decently and in order, you've first got to prove that you can handle the first one successfully again, right? And it's like one of my little cousins I grew up watching. Okay, he's trying to. I grew up babysitting him, right? And now he's already. I think he's got his associates or he's working on his bachelor's, and now he's like, man, I did the same what I want to do. So long story short, he's trying to become a pilot, right? Airline pilot. So to be a pilot, you have to have 1,500 hours of required flight time, 1,500 hours of flight time in order to become a pilot, right? It takes 2 years minimum to get that amount of time, right? So think about that as an example. But then in marriage, which in my opinion is even bigger of a responsibility, it's even more risky because souls are involved, right? Souls are at risk, lives are at risk. Brothers want multiple wives in less of a period of time than that, right? They want them in less than 2 years, 2 months, maybe 2 days, even, right? So, like I said many times before, polygamy is lawful, but not expedient to most men who aren't that far along in their maturity or their experience, right? And I believe maybe a few months back, one of the brothers from Church of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai on their YouTube page had posted a pretty good video. It's probably 10 minutes or less that y'all may want to check out. And it was just talking about if you're just coming into the truth, that's the last thing you should be looking for, right? But actually, I believe there's a section in this book, in the Polygamous Papers by the brother Hondo Solomon, that talks about something pertaining to that, right? So the question is, how long should an Israelite man be in the truth before trying to take another wife? So in this book, which again, I'm gonna plug the brother. I've talked to him a few times. He seems like a cool, sincere brother. The Polygamous Papers by Hondo Solomon. Um, this is one of the topics he goes over. It says, "What's the best age for a man to marry additional women?" All right, so I'm gonna read through it real briefly and then get to the next question. It says, "A man's maturity is more of a factor than his age." And that's actually in the scriptures as well. Wisdom of Solomon 4, 8, and 9, right? It says, wisdom is the gray hair unto men, right? So it says, a man, the former follows the latter as a matter of course, meaning that wisdom or maturity comes through age. It says, if he attracts women of class and high quality, and they enjoy his charisma, fortitude, and ability to care for them along spiritual, emotional, and physical lines, there should be little concern from the community at large. So, saying if he can provide for women of class and quality, right, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, then it shouldn't bother anybody. Is basically what he's saying. But this next part is very important. It says his motives and intent to accomplish his goals reveal the depth of his character and personality. Okay, so his motives, what's the reason why he wants to court more than or marry more than one woman, right? And that comes back to this first comment, right, that a brother had made. It says it's all about intention when it comes to polygamy, right? It's about the intentions behind it. Because, like I said before, and one of the questions is pertaining to, someone who just takes them out of lust, right? Your intention is very important. So it says his motives and intent to accomplish his goals reveal the depth of his character and personality. So this is a very important thing that we as men, just in general, not even just dealing with polygamy, but in general, this shows our character. This shows our personality, right? Our ability to accomplish our goals reveals the depth of our character. What have your goals been for the last month, for the last year, for the last few years, right? And what were your intentions and your motives behind those goals? And were you able to actually accomplish these goals? Right? Because if you're not able to accomplish these goals, that shows something in your character and your personality. It shows either a lack in character, or it's trying to tell you something, right? So it then says the maturity mentioned here is predicated on the man's upbringing, the trials of life he has successfully passed, which lead to his bearing and spiritual stature. So your maturity is based off of one, your upbringing, how you were raised, but then also the trials of life that you have passed successfully in the furnace of adversity. Right? Have you been able to go through certain adversities? Because that's going to show your character or your lack of character, especially when dealing um, with the topic of polygamy. If you have a failing marriage, or you have a marriage that's lacking heavily in an area or certain areas, then it's not a good idea to take on another one, right? And then it goes on to say, in certain different cultures, how some cultures say men under 30 shouldn't be polygamous, men under 40 shouldn't be polygamous, but again, it's not based specifically off of age. Right? I'm gonna jump down to the last little paragraph. It says polygyny is not so much about multiple women sharing a man, but it is about forging a family in an economic structure that includes marketplace, military, agriculture, religion, and sexual stratagems. This must be foremost in the mind of the polygamist, or it will come across like pimping or a way for a man to simply have more sex. Women familiar with polygamy can tell when a man lacks understanding of this or has impure motives. Okay, so polygamy in general is supposed to be about forging a family, right? And I spoke about this earlier in one of the posts that I had made, just talking about how many Israelite men in general are locked up, are incarcerated, right? It's the highest amount of people when you compare to other nations of people. It's Israelite people mostly locked up, men. The highest rate of suicide, Israelite men. The highest rate of even in certain areas of homosexuality, Israelites. The highest of being killed, being murdered, Israelites. Right? The highest, all of these are for a reason. Right? So when it comes to polygamy, it has to be about forging a family in a structure, like it says here, in an economic structure that includes marketplace, meaning building up finances for your household, military, meaning protecting your household, agriculture, meaning you can provide, like I said, answering the last question, it should be, and some people won't like the fact that I say this, but it should be an economic thing for your household, right? Like for example, I have a lot of things that we're doing here at my house or my homestead, and my daughter's got to help out, my son's got to help out, my wife helps out. My wife was out there helping me put a fence up today with our 3.5 week old baby uh tied around her chest, right? it has to be a it has to be profitable economically to your family to bring another woman into the household, right? Because if not, like it says here, Women familiar with polygyny can tell when a man lacks understanding of this and has impure motives. So if your motive isn't to build up your family, right, and to use a woman in the way she's supposed to be used, in the correct way as a help meet, then most women are going to be able to understand, and outside people looking in are going to understand when your motives are impure, right? So hopefully that answers the question number 3. How long should you be in the truth before trying to get another wife? It's not really about length of time. It's more about successfully being able to pass the tests that you have been put through previously, right? Question number 4: does a head have to make sure it's okay with his rib before pursuing more women in marriage? So this is a question I've gotten multiple times from brothers and from sisters. Sisters looking to join a man's polygynous household, and from brothers looking to add someone else to his household, right? So my answer to this is really kind of two parts, right? Number one, first and foremost, la'ah. No, the man does not have to, right? He does not have to make sure it's okay with his first wife, right? And the example I've given many times is, let's say I'm the manager, I'm the hiring manager, the store manager at Walmart, right? I don't have to ask a regular employee if it's okay if I hire another employee, right? There's a rank and there's an order, and the man or the head of the household, the husband, just like the manager has a higher position, the man has a higher position in the household, right? But the second part to that answer, should talk to her about it first, right? And let me get 1 Corinthians 11:3 real quick first, and then I'll jump into that second part. So this is 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Hamashiach, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Hamashiach is the Most High. So there's an order in the household, right? And the head of the household is the man. So he does not have to make sure it's okay with the woman, right? But again, the second part to my answer, and me personally speaking from personal experience, he most definitely should talk to her about it first, right? I've multiple times uh talked to my rib about bringing another woman possibly into my house, right? And it definitely helped out greatly, but that's only because my rib is the best godly example of a wife and a mother that I've ever personally seen, right? So she's been a tower against death to me and possibly to my household multiple times, right? Because she's pointed out red flags, so to speak, in women that I was considering um, courting in the past, right? Let me go to Sirach chapter 26 real quick to prove that point. This is Sirach chapter 2, verse 22. It says, "A harlot shall be accounted as spittle." So a woman that is going to be accounted as spit. But a married woman is a tower against death to her husband, right? So I know of certain brothers, and some of them are no longer in the faith anymore. Some of them are no longer trying to follow the word, that have brought in a second wife into their house. and she completely just tore down the whole house. Right? She completely destroyed everything that that man or those men have built. Right? And if the scripture to her husband, if you think about it, back in the days when King Solomon and King David and all these other kings were reigning, and even in some parts of the world today, when they have castles, they have walls all around the castle, right? And at the corners of the castle walls, there's what? There's towers. What are the towers there for? It's to give a good vantage point for certain soldiers or people who work for the king to keep a lookout, right? Those towers are against death. So Sirach 26 and 22 says a married woman is a tower against death to her husband. So it would be a wise thing if the woman, the first wife, is moving in faith and in wisdom and moving correctly in order. It's a wise thing to get her, not opinion, but her discernment on whoever the man would be courting, right? And this is Proverbs 14 and 1. It says, every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands. Right? So a foolish woman can pluck down a whole household with her hands. But a wise woman is going to build up her house. So I think it would definitely be a wise thing for a man to not so much make sure it's okay, right? He doesn't have to do that, but to get his first wife's, again, if she's moving in the faith, opinion and discernment, and allow her to get to know the sister that he may be bringing into the house as well, right? Um, it says in marriage, this is the fifth question. In marriage or courting, is it okay for men or women to have friends, quote unquote, friends of the opposite sex? So it's funny that this question was asked because I was actually about a week ago or a week and a half ago, I was planning on doing just a video just on this topic. So I'll try and keep it kind of short or brief. But in generally speaking, right, and actually it speaks on this topic as well in this book, the Polygamous Papers, and the brother Hondo Solomon, and I've heard many other, even scientists and professors and psychologists speak on this, right? In general, male and female behavior is controlled by nature, right? And we know who made nature, right? The natural state of things, the Most High made us through nature, right? So when we're talking about the endocrine system, right, especially your endocrine glands produce hormones, okay? Your hormones control what? They control your emotions, the emotional states that you go through. So we have to understand, just speaking, I won't even say scientifically because some people will be like, oh, you believe in science and all of this. Just speaking naturally, right? Speaking from nature or a quote unquote scientific standpoint, when you are around the opposite sex, right, through social media or on the phone or talking to them on the phone, video chatting with them, whatever the case may be, your hormones begin to change. Why? Because that's the way the Most High made us, right? So nature itself, which again we know who created nature, tells us that no, you shouldn't have so-called friends, quote unquote friends, from the opposite sex, right? Well, a woman's best friend should be her husband, right? And possibly sincere sisters that are in the faith as well, right? But I've spoken to a lot of sisters, especially with women. We know how jealous and envious women can be, and it's hard to find sincere sisters. It's hard to find sincere brothers as well, but I believe even more so with sisters because just the jealousy and the envy that goes on amongst them, right? And then on the other side, as men should have a wife as his best friend, or wives as his best friend, right? And then of course other men that are moving in wisdom as well, right? And this is also can be backed up with the scriptures, not just nature or science. I'm gonna go to Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18. Just one second. Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18. And actually, let me ask y'all that. What do y'all think? If you're a married brother or sister, or even if you're single, right? You answer this question if you want to in the comments. In marriage or in courting, is it okay for men or women to have quote unquote friends of the opposite sex? What do y'all think? What do y'all think? This is Genesis chapter 2 and verse 18. And Yahweh said, it is not good that the man should. And then he goes on to say, 6 verses later, they became one flesh, right? Meaning they became married. So he didn't say it's not good that a man should be alone. I'm going to make him a best friend of the opposite sex. That's not what he said, right? Because he knew how he made things. He knew how he naturally made us. And again, you can look it up, scientifically proven. Anytime a man is around a woman, his hormones start to change, her hormones start to change, right? I'm gonna go to this part of the book in the Polygamous Papers, right? It says, would outside Platonic relationships be encouraged? Okay. It says, my advice for both men and women is to avoid entertaining the complementary sex, complementary meaning the opposite, in zone. We are biologically suited for sex, and marriage provides the environment for building friendship and camaraderie between mates. And then this part is talking about what I was getting into a minute ago. When a man is in the immediate vicinity of a woman, he experiences a hormonal shift because her hormones are shifting as well. It says men have no desire to befriend women on general principle. And we've known each other for years, but no one has tried anything. Mantra becomes empty because at least one of them is attracted to the other at some point. So I know this has happened to me personally as well. I remember in high school there was a female that I was attracted to, and she wasn't attracted to me. And then we were quote unquote friends, and then I was no longer attracted to her, and then she was attracted to me. And this cycle went on a couple different times, and it's just making that point, right? At some point in time, one or the other is going to be attracted to the other. It says friendships are a type of relationship, which means the nature of the contract is agreed upon. Relationship is a type of contract between two people, right? It says the truth surfaces when the person insisting on friendship admits that the other has made it known they wanted more or even made sexual advances. Okay, and this happens more often than not. You're in the quote unquote friend zone, but then one of them wants more, right? And they try to make some type of sexual advance, whether it be physically or whether it be asking them out on a date or etc. It says verbal, written, and unspoken but understood contracts, one or more parties are in constant violation of this agreement as someone wants more than friendship, right? And I guarantee you, it shows what 11, 12 people on here right now, and I guarantee you almost every one of y'all have been in this type of quote unquote friendship, where either you wanted more from the other person or the other person wanted more from you, or maybe both of y'all at some point in time, right? And it says, I'm gonna jump down actually. Uh, it says, why would a woman continue a relationship with another man when he is married to another woman, unless she is seeking to join his family? Conversely, why would a man with his biological inclination toward polygamy want to converse with women who are not in his family and have no plans to be? Polygynists are perpetually focused on family, and anyone who wants their time and attention better be ready to build something and to put work in. The friend zone is one sided and is used to manipulate another's sexuality by placing the friend on hold until such a time as their time, skills, money, advice, and sexual favors are needed. Right. And I've seen this happen many, many times. I've done, outside of the truth, I've done this to females. I've had females do this to me in the past. Right. The friend zone, like he says, is used to manipulate another person. It's to put the friend on hold until they need your time, your skills, your advice, your money, or your sexual favors. Right? So, to answer the question again, in marriage or in courting, is it okay for men or women to have friends of the opposite sex? No, it shouldn't be okay, because our nature, we're biologically, like the brother said in this book, we're biologically inclined for marriage, right? I'm gonna go to the comments real quick. Uh, it doesn't really make sense. One thing that doesn't make sense, or guide who can be a counselor to help her choose a good husband. Khan, I can agree with that in a sense, which is why a woman should be a part of the body. But the problem is, a woman opens her mind to so many different men, right? You got a woman learning from a Christian pastor, and then another Christian pastor, and then some brother that goes to the church, or in the so-called uh truth, or how people call it, the Hebrew Israelite truth, right? You got a sister learning from GMS, Sakari, House of Israel, IUIC, and the list goes on and on and on. And they all have contrary doctrines, right? So how could she have a spiritual teacher or a guide, right, or to help her choose a husband if she's learning from all these different people who aren't in agreement, right? Karabo said, I agree with that. When two people of the opposite sex are around each other for too long, it can open doors for temptation. It does open doors for temptation, right? And this is why 1 Corinthians 14 and 35 says, if she will learn anything, let her learn from who? From her husband at home, right? So I'm gonna read one more little part, and then I'm gonna go from the book, the Polygamous Papers, and then I'm gonna go on to the next question. Okay, it says, uh, even if a man and woman have known one another for years and have never tried anything, quote unquote, the issue here is still being dodged. It is natural for men and women who are in close proximity and who share the same values to be attracted to one another, right? So even if you have, let's say you have a man and a woman who have been around each other for a long time, they've never had sex, they've never done anything sexual, it's still, you're still dodging the issue, which is, according to nature, it is natural for a man and woman who are around each other and who share the same values to be attracted to one another, right? Then it says, being natural as it is, we are led to ask another question. Why fight against natural law, which includes the laws of sex and biology, right? Then it goes on to say, men keeping company with women, they are not courting, and this is a very important thing for you brothers out there, okay? And I take this to heart because I already knew this from personal experience, right? It says men keeping company or being friends with women they are not courting waste valuable time, energy, money, and other resources as they are wolves in sheep's clothing. So when you got a woman keeping you in the friend zone and you are not courting her, okay, courting her as in seeing if she would be an expedient or profitable option as a wife, you're wasting your time, valuable time, because we know the times we're living in. You are wasting your energy because a lot of these women are spiritual vampires and will drain you of your energy and your time and your money, right? And other resources. It says if she were a lady, she would understand that polygynous men have households to run. Okay, so and then it says, thus if a woman wants his time, thus if a woman wants his time, attention, and affection, she has full liberty to speak with him and or his family about becoming an additional wife. Otherwise, she is wasting his energy that could be directed towards building his empire and loving on his women and children. Right? So a man, it does come down to a man because the man is in control of his household. He should be in control of his spirit, his time, his money, his family, etc. But we all know that 99.999% of the time a woman is in control out in the world of if anything's going to happen or not, right? Meaning it's like I had asked a sister maybe a week ago or a week and a half ago, how many messages do you get a day? Like how many DMs do you get a day? And she said, well, this many. And I was like, damn, well, in a month, that's like over 100 messages from dudes, right? So in the end, it's up to the woman to actually seek out a righteous head or to just waste a man's time, right? Let me go back up. Yes, sisters do that sometimes and they wind up with a doctrine that's all over the place. Me personally, I don't even like listening to too many different teachers. Khan, same here. I did it for learning when I was first coming into the truth, and went through wisdom and understanding. You will soon discern, most high willing, have eyes to see and ears to hear that that is not a good thing to do, to be learning from a bunch of different people. Leah H. If the woman is not a virgin that's looking to be a second wife or concubine, does her past body count matter? If the woman is not a virgin that's looking to be, oh, if she's looking to be a second wife or concubine. So, of course, in when you look at it generally, of course, a woman's body count matters, right? It shows how, for lack of a better term, loose she has been in the past. It shows how easily available she's been to men. It shows lack of worth, self worth. It shows a lot of insecurity when a woman's been with multiple men, right? But the thing is that the thing that I always tell sisters, whether they're virgins or not, the first thing I tell them is that they need to get baptism for remission of sins, right? And I've done many lessons on that. I would recommend you or whoever needs to look into that, hasn't looked into that, go ahead and look into that. Baptism for remission of sins. But also, that comes into play. I don't believe there was any questions pertaining specifically to concubines, but when you look at a concubine, right? I'm gonna actually pull up the definition real quick. A concubine was basically a lesser wife is the term I believe that is used, right? Um, 1 second, right? A lot of men would take concubines back in the days, and still do in certain cultures, because they weren't virgins, right? Because when you go into the word and you go into the law and you see that you would pay a dad a dowry if his wife, or if his daughter was going to be your wife, you would pay a certain amount, because that virginity was very valuable. And in the times we're in today, I mean, virginity is even more, in my eyes, more valuable, because less and less people have it, right? It's like supply and demand. The less supply there is, the higher you can charge for something when it comes to physical or economic things, right? So concubine, um, so it says concubinage is an interpersonal and sexual relationship between a man and a woman, in which the couple does not want to or cannot enter into a full marriage, right? So when sometimes it was because the man was like, look, you're from, and I'm just giving examples, right? Look, you're from another nation, you're going to be a concubine, you can't be my wife. And I know of brothers that have concubines in today's day and age, right? And then you have other brothers that, look, you know what, you were married all this time ago, and for whatever reason he put you away, I cannot marry you, but I'll protect you, I'll pay for you, whatever your way. And when you really look into being a concubine, it's actually, uh in a lot of different cultures, it was basically like a servant, right? But Karabo, message me on IG. It might take me a day or two to get back to you, but on Sabbath, I'll most likely be able to get back to you. Yahweh Ratazah, most high willing. Warrior's dream. Body count equals soul ties. Yes, that's very, very important, right? When it comes to body counts, women all the men that she sleeps with, right? Women retain the DNA of every man she sleeps with, unprotected, right? So it is very important. Like I said, first of all, to get baptized for remission of sins, but this doesn't turn you back to how you were brand new physically, right? Because every person you have sexual intercourse with, and you can look up different studies. I know there was one, it was by a cancer research center. There was one study by the University of Seattle, I believe, that show, I mean, women absorb and they retain the DNA from every man they had sex with. So the only one that can clear you of that is the Most High, right? The only one who can forgive you of that is the Most High. But to answer your question, it does matter in that sense. But then again, I've posted about it many times. I spoke about it many times, and I know other brothers that feel the same way have said the same. When you truth, and I mean, I just know me personally, it will be a lot longer courting process and a lot longer proving process. But it's good, as if the woman is able to come clean, so to speak, and be honest about that. Because if she's not, you're trying to build a relationship on lies, and it's not going to work in the first place, right? So I'm gonna go to the next question. It says, yeah, I like this one. Me and my rib actually answered this on a live we probably did around a year ago. Someone asked a similar question to this, right? It says, what is the most important thing a man and woman should do in marriage? Right? The most important thing a husband and wife, for them to have a successful marriage, right? I'm gonna go to First Peter chapter 3, First Peter chapter 3. I'm gonna give you the short answer, right? If you read First Peter 3, verse 1 all the way down to 8, it'll give you a longer answer. But I'm gonna give you the shorter answer for time's sake. This is First Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. It says, and this is just to give you a little context. This is talking, this whole verse 1 through 8 is talking about a husband and a wife. It's talking about a marriage. Okay. So verse 8 says, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous. So that first part is the most important part. And it says, finally, be ye all of one mind. The short answer to this question, what's the most important thing you have to have, husband and wife, to have a successful marriage? You have to be of one mind. For example, me and my wife have come to the understanding and one-mindedness of, if the Most High says this is right, then it's right. If the Most High says this is wrong, then it's wrong. Right? We are on one accord with living our lives according to the word. So as long as you have that sincerely and you're applying it, not just reading it and saying you believe it, you're applying it, everything else will fall into place in a marriage, right? Because this book, the Bible, is literally instructions on how to live correctly, right? It gives you your roles as a male, it gives you your roles as a female, it gives you your roles and your duties as a parent, a father, a mother. It gives you your roles and your duties as a husband, as a wife, right? It gives you your roles and duties as daughters and sons of the Most High, right? To be set apart to Him. So that's the answer, being of one mind. And another thing that I'll actually throw in there too is I'm gonna get Sirach 29 and 20. And I've said this many times on many other lives as well, right? The other thing, besides being of one mind, is always remember that it is you and your household first. If you're married, it is your household. You are a team. You are together. You cannot let nobody come between you two or you three, right? This is Sirach chapter 29. Salakia, 1 second. And verse 20. Salakia, my computer's going a little slow. Well, I'm just going to get in my Bible. Sirach chapter 29 and verse 20. It says, help thy neighbor according to thy power, and beware that thou thyself, sister, helping your family, etc. It's a good thing to do, but beware that you fall not into the same. In other words, your family has to come first. Again, like I said before, my Theo, my uncle, who was uh the best example of a father figure that I had growing up, he told me, and it always stuck with me. He even told me before the truth. He said, help your family, help everybody out as long as it doesn't hinder your own family, your own house. So I always took that to heart, and you just got to remember your family comes first, right? I'm gonna go to the next question. It says, how long have you been married and in the truth? So I've been with my wife for 10 years in June. All right, that's crazy to me. It'll be 10 years. And long ago, she was like, "Man, I don't remember the last time we argued." Right, and all praise to the Most High because we haven't argued in such a long time. We couldn't even remember when it was. Right, because we're in one accord, which was the answer to the previous question. What's the most important thing you need to have? Long time now. She knows that if she honors me as unto the Lord, then she's doing right. And as long as I provide for her spiritually, emotionally, financially, physically, etc., then I'm doing right. Right. So going on 10 years now. Right. I think these next few questions I can go through pretty quick. Thoughts on polygyny pertaining to sisters that are single mothers. So when this comes up, I've been asked this multiple times, and to be honest, it's a good for brothers that have, again, going back to one of the other questions, so brothers that have experience with children, it can be a really good thing. I've seen I've seen it happen to where it's a good thing, and I've seen it happen to where it's a bad thing. Right? For brothers that have experience with children and know how to bring them up correctly and teach them and have patience, etc., it can be a good thing. But the problem is that most single mothers, from what I've seen, uh, um, most, most single mothers have traits of the father, right? Who is absent, and because of that, they won't allow the new husband or the new man that's courting her be the father figure to the child or children that she's bringing in to the marriage or the courtship, right? So it can only really work if a most right against many is actually when the married couple gets divorced in many other cultures and countries and societies, the dad predominantly gets the child or the children. Why? Because he's the disciplinarian. And as I've said before in many other lessons, we could go down a whole list of 100 different statistics that shows you your child is more likely to end up in jail, is more likely to end up a pedophile, is more likely to end up a homosexual if they don't have the father in the household, right? So thoughts on polygamy pertaining to sisters that are single mothers. The first thing I would say, if it's gonna work, this is Proverbs 22:6. It says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." The man who is the main disciplinarian and the head and the teacher household has to be able to teach the child or children as if they were his own, right? Or B, like I said, the child stays your household, aka your new husband, or the father's parent, the children's other father, right? This is Sirach 4:10. It says, "Be as the head of a husband unto their mother," which is 90-something% of the time. And I know this because my two oldest, who I had with their mother, who was I was with in high school, at one point in time we separated and we went to court. And I told the judge, "Look, I'm not comfortable with my two daughters living with her. She lives with her boyfriend. They don't even have their own room." The judge said, "I will give you so many days to get a bigger place. They have to have their own room, or you're gonna have to give him custody." Right then and there, she said, "Well, I'm not getting another place. He can have custody. I got custody of them." Right? All praise to the Most High. That was all through the Most High's favor. But the point is, afterwards, he kind of tried to scare me, and he was like, "You know what, sir? Stay real quick. I need to talk to you." And I was like, "Damn, what did I do? Did I mess up or something? I might have to pass a drug test or something to get my daughters right." But anyways, I just want to shake your hand because 90-something% of men do not get custody of their children in Texas, and the amount of fathers that actually want their children is probably even lower than that. So I just want to shake your hand and say, I commend you for getting custody of your children, right? But going back to what the point of the story is, in other country in Eastern countries, that is like the most prevalent thing to happen. The man gets custody because in reality, the children are the seed of their father. They literally come from his loins. They are his seed. They are him. They're his bloodline. So it's actually unfair to say they don't have a father figure in their life, or if they do, he is not an example of what a father is actually supposed to be, right? Because as a father figure, we're supposed to be, again, the representatives of the Most High. And like it says, Revelation 3 and 19, I believe, it says, "Those I love, I rebuke and discipline." The Most High says if he loves you, he will rebuke you and discipline you. So us as fathers, we have to do the same towards our children, right? So why do you think especially so many so-called sisters especially, are against poly in the truth, right? And that's a pretty easy one. Like I mentioned earlier, um the majority of the time it comes down to just envy, comes down to jealousy, right? This is Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 4. It says, "Wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy?" Envy is something that most people cannot stand before. You want to set yourself apart as much as possible from envy. And a lot of women are very envious, which again is why I've seen, not, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've seen a good amount of polygamous marriages because women are jealous or envious, right? And this can be avoided in most situations. Actually, there was a small excerpt from the brother Hondo Solomon about this. about it in the book. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Right, jealousy and envy is plays a lot into it. Um, okay, here it is. It says, "Are co-wives required to get along before the marriage?" Right? It says choosing co-wives with similar temperaments decreases the risk of conflict, both great and small, so that everyone feels safe, sound, and supported. However, it is rare this occurs, as the this is not an issue of right or wrong, good or bad. It is simply the way things are, and the man and his consorts or wives should be set to organize their economy according to individual personality traits, as well in taller skin, right? It also says according to their individual personality traits and the collective spirit of their house. So the spirit of the house should be moving in decency and order. They should be in agreement on that, right? But then it says jealousy and issues related to it courting her for any reason. So if you see that a woman is jealous before bringing her into your household, it should be a sign, it should be a red flag that you shouldn't be courting her in the first place, right? But like it says here, jealousy is most of the time related to personal space, right? So having a woman to have her own personal space, whether it be, her own room, her own side of the house, her own house in general, could definitely um, make those issues a lot less likely to happen. And then at the bottom it says jealousy is a learned condition, just as any other vice, and not inherent within a woman's nature in relation to her sisters. So jealousy is something that is learned, is what he's saying. And when a woman actually sees her sister wife or her husband's other wife as a sister, the jealousy isn't going to be there, or it's going to be easier to deal with and get rid of, and you know examine, how the scriptures say, examine yourself. 2 Corinthians 13:5. It's going to be easier to examine and to pluck out those weeds from her mental garden, so to speak, as to why she is jealous, right? Uzziah Austin, shalom, Mak. Yahweh Shai Barakatah. Black women have been raised to subconsciously look at each other as competition only because of men. But what about when sex is involved? Khan, Khan. I agree. Um, Let me keep going with the questions. I'm gonna get a couple more questions, or actually, let me get one more scripture for this. Who do you think, or why do you think so many women, so many so-called sisters, especially, are against poly? Let me get James, the third chapter, and verse. Let me see, verse 16. It says, "For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work." Every evil work. So where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. Because like it says in First Corinthians, the 14th chapter, it says that confusion is not of the most high. So envying and strife leads to that confusion and leads to all these other evil works, right? Oh, the brother said not involved, I meant. But what about when sex is not involved? Khan. But I get what you meant because you said only because they're seen as competition only because of men, right? When sex is involved, it's always competition. But even when sex is not involved, at times I've seen where, in the past, say in me and my rib were talking about this because we read part of the book, the Polygamous Papers together, right? And it's funny because the brother gives a lot of real world examples that many other brothers have experienced as well. And one of the things he gave, he said, is a sign that a man back now with the knowledge that he has on polygamy and think of experiences where he was around multiple women and he was able to navigate the conversations or the environment in the way where both of them were comfortable, both of them were cool with being in the vicinity of him and not being jealous, right? So it's funny that you said they've been raised to look at each other as competition only because of men, but in reality, it's only because of weak men. It's because of men that are going to play themselves against each other. It's because of men that, they like the fact that women will be fighting over them, etc. Right? But in reality, a polygamous man is going to be able to successfully have a relationship between him and one wife, him and another wife, and then most high willing, all of them could be on one accord in one household, right? But let me go to chapter 3 and verse 12 just to look at it, this question from another angle, right? Why do you think so many so-called sisters especially are against poly or polygamy? In the truth, it is because women are used to ruling over men instead of allowing men to be the head and to lead and to let the man rule over them, right? This is Isaiah 3 and 12. It says, as for my people, children are their oppressors, and women rule over them. O my people, they which lead thee cause thee to err and destroy the way of thy path. Right? So the Most High said, as for my people, man, women rule over them. Right? The women rule over the men, and that's how it is in this Western society. Right? That's how it is in general. That's how it is in this queendom, because we kingdom is run by a king, queendom is run by a queen, and all of these women. And go figure, if you look up the word queen, right? It actually used to mean what Quean. It actually used to mean a sussy or a prostitute, right? A lot of these women that are living like prostitutes, like whores, rule over men, and they got men just begging, literally begging for them to even look in their direction or to give them some place, so to speak, right? When it's the opposite of how the man created it to be, right? Since the beginning. This is Genesis chapter 3 and verse 16. It says, unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children. And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Right? Your desire is supposed to be to your husband and for him to rule over you. And that's in the book of Genesis, right? The beginning of the Bible. There's no Bible verse that says that a woman is supposed to rule over a man, but that is the way that society is now in general, right? Um, Brother said this all has to do with monogamy. And you know what? I'll I won't disagree with you, but I'll add to that, right? I say it has to do with monogamy, right? It has to do with forced monogamy because at the beginning of this book, I don't know if you've read it, brother, but it's called the Polygamous Papers by Brother Hondo Solomon, and the first thing that he talks about at the beginning of the book, um, he's talking about polygamous cultures, right? And he talks about how the ancient Greeks and the Romans, that in their culture and their society, that's the first time in world history that you can look it up and you can see that they had strict monogamy, meaning forced monogamous. You were not allowed to be polygamous, right? You're not allowed to have more than one wife, even though a lot of them did it behind the scenes, right? And they would have what they would call hidden wives, or one wife for the public and then another one or multiple ones in the back, right, so to speak. But it's very interesting to me that it says, learn not the way of the heathens. We know who the Greeks and who the Romans are. And that's the first real example where you see forced monogamy, right? But I do definitely agree with you. It has a lot to do with monogamy, forced monogamy, though, right? Because I know there's certain brothers that, hey, they say they're fine with one woman and that's all they can handle. I've heard brothers say, you know what, this one's enough of a headache, or this one costs enough, or I could physically only keep up with one. If that's the case, then every man has his own lot, right? But for people to go out of their way and say it's unlawful or you're wicked to be polygamous, I have to wholeheartedly disagree with that, right? We live in a gynocentric society. Yes, we do. And that just means we're more focused on women, right? Actually, let me get the I'm gonna get the definition of that. People are more centered around or focused on women, right? The definition of gynocentrism: the tendency to place the female or feminine viewpoint and experience at the center of a society or a culture, right? And that's in other words, that's a matriarchy. And I've done multiple lessons on that, made multiple posts and videos about that as well. A matriarchy is completely against the Bible. The Bible is all about patriarchy. That's what it's about. It's about a man leading his household. It's about a man leading the family. But in this day and age, this is why we see, again, this is why we see so many children being raised to be LGBT, LMNOP, because the majority of them are being raised either by single mothers, or they are being raised in a household where the father may be there, but he is taking on the role of the mother and he's weak, right? Warrior's Dream said, no lies there. Uzziah Austin, I'm definitely going to invest in that book, Khan. It's probably like, I think it's like 12, $15 on Amazon. And the brother's real cool too. I have him on Instagram if you want to look him up. His name's Brother Hondo Solomon. I've talked to him on a few occasions. He's real cool, brother. Warrior's Dream. There's even a TV show out now called Brother Husbands. God, I can only laugh because it's like the most I said, like wink at their ignorance or wink at their folly. Like, how off is that, right? And it speaks very briefly as well in the polygamous papers about that. And all you really need to know, I mean, common sense tells you that no real man is gonna want to be um, a part of a marriage where him and another man are going to be married to the same woman, right? It's less, if you really look into it, that's called uh polyandry. Polyandry is when a woman is quote unquote married to more than one man or in a relationship with more than one man, right? And if you look into it, it's less than 1% of the whole polygamous population, right? Everybody who's married to more than one uh person, it's less than 1% of the whole world's population is a part of polyandry, right? Because it's just, it's off, like you said, it's off, it's wrong on so many levels. And again, going back to, I like to go back to nature, because I've had this conversation with polygyny with people who aren't really that much of the faith. They don't really believe the Bible to be true, or not completely. And I'll just talk to them, talking naturally from nature, from science, a scientific point of view. A man, I personally could impregnate I have enough semen to impregnate every single woman on the earth in a month or less, right? If I donated all my semen, I would have enough to impregnate every woman on the earth. Do you think the Most High made us men like that for no reason? You think that was an accident? Do you think it's an accident that a woman can only have one child a year, right? One child every 10 months, according to Solomon. People say 9 months, but I know with my last child, it was over 10 months, right? So men were created a certain way, women were created a certain way. A woman is not created naturally to have more than one sexual partner, because she can't even have a child every 9 months. When you really look into it, a woman is only supposed to have a child every 1 to 2 years, because her body takes, for a normal healthy woman, it takes about a year, a whole year after birth, for her whole body to not only cleanse itself, but to get back into complete health as she was before having the child, right? For women that are out of shape, for which we know the majority of women are, over 50% of people in the United States are obese and have health issues. It takes up to 2 years for her body to get back to the same health as it was before pregnancy. So that means every 1 to 2 years after pregnancy, she's good to have another child. The Most High definitely made us like that for a reason, right? He didn't make no mistakes when he um, created us. The brother warrior's dream, not to sound crass, but the Most High biologically ordained that a man could have more than one wife, merely the ability for a man to sow his seed into more than one woman at a time. Come. And to some people it may sound crass, it may sound um, unholy, but you're literally saying that the Most High created us unholy. Then, if that's your stance on it, right? Um, Karabo, I remember seeing some woman who had 3 men, just straight demonic. Con, it is. And here's the thing though. The majority of women, I'm gonna leave that up actually. The majority of women are straight demonic, right? Because the majority of women have at one point in their life been romantically or sexually involved with more than one man at the same time. And there's even women, so-called sisters, that wear head wraps and have fringes on, that do the same thing. There's sisters that I've known of, so-called sisters that I've known of, that were being courted by multiple men at the same time, right? So it's not even just in the world. We know in the world there's women that go and sleep with all these different men, right? But also so-called of the faith that do the exact same thing. So why do you think so many so-called sisters, especially, are against poly and the truth? Again, it comes down to jealousy, envy, and because they're just so used to ruling over men. They don't want to be ruled over by a man of the Most High, even though that's the reason they were created. Right? I'm gonna go to the next question. It says, yeah, it may be lawful, but is it favorable to Elohim over monogamy? So is polygamy, so he's saying yes, it may be lawful, but is it favorable to the Most High over monogamy? And I copied and pasted, or I rewrote these questions as they were written, just for some of y'all who may be wondering, right? And I believe brother Uzziah, Tavon Austin, I think I saw you on the live that the brother I did a couple weeks ago, maybe, right? The brother Chris, or following Yeshua, right? He said something that I've heard many times, I've heard of many brothers saying similar things, right? We have to understand that the Bible is our instructions, right? And in reality, it is our protection. The Most High gave us this word so we could protect ourselves. He gave us instructions on how to protect ourselves. He says, be set apart from wicked people. Why? Because wicked people have evil spirits on them. So we are supposed to protect ourselves from those evil spirits, right? Getting to the point, the Bible basically is a fence, okay? The Bible is a fence. The Most High says, stay inside this fence. Now, there are many different lawful things that we can do. There are many different activities or sports, so to speak, we can play inside this fence lawfully, as long as we stay inside that fence. Now, going back to what I was saying earlier about we cannot add to the word, right? Because if we add to the word, the Most High is going to add plagues to us. There's no verse that says, I am the Most High and I prefer monogamy over polygyny, or vice versa. I am the Most High and I prefer polygyny over monogamy. So we can't insert that or infer or assume that that's what he thinks. And we can't say that that's what he thinks, because that would be us adding to the word. And again, like we read in Proverbs, I believe it was 30 and verse 6 also, it says, add not unto his word, lest you be found a liar, right? So, but this is a scripture that pertains to the question, right? This is 2 Samuel chapter 12 and verse 8. And I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives into thy bosom, and gave thee the house of Israel and of Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. Right? So this is the Most High talking to David. And he said, hey, I gave you your master's house. I gave you thy master's wives. And if it was too little, I would have gave you more. Right? Why would the Most High say that if he favors monogamy over polygyny, right? And again, I'm not saying he favors one or the other, because that would be me adding to the word. Again, it comes down to, it's lawful, but is it actually expedient to you, right? And can you do it lawfully, right? Because we read First Timothy 5 and 8 earlier, which says if a man doesn't provide for his own house, he's denying the faith and is worse than an infidel, worse than a non-believer. So it would definitely be more favorable if you can only provide for one at this point in time, and you want another one but you can't provide for her. Then in that case, obviously you have to stay lawful, right? And it would be preferred. But other than that, we can't say, okay, the Most High prefers this one or that one, right? That would be us adding to the word. I'm gonna go on to the next question. Um, if a man dies, his wife is to marry his brother, right? So Khan, that one's a little bit off topic, but I'm gonna answer it right now. Um, Let me read this real quick. So it says, Uzziah Austin, there's even scripture that states a woman actually becomes a man's possession, but never says that vice versa for a man. Khan, in Sirach 36, let me get it real quick. 36, I believe 24, 25. It says this. And this is a verse that, man, Feminists hate this verse. Feminist. Every time I posted this, almost every time, I'm sure somebody has had to share their feelings on it. This is Sirach 36 and 24. It says, "He that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, and a pillar of rest." So when you get a wife, you're getting a possession. Now, some women will say, well, nobody owns me, right? I've heard sisters say, I'm not a dog, things of that nature, right? I had a sister tell me not too long ago, me and my rib were laughing about it. She said, it sounds like you want a dog, or it sounds like you want a dog or a child, not a wife, right? Because they have a problem with being called a possession. But the thing is, if a man has wisdom and he knows how to possess his possessions, then you're going to want to be a part of that possession. You're going to want to be a part of that man's house, right? Let's say an acre of land and they both have 100 chickens and they both have 50 fruit trees, but one of them takes really good care of all he has, and the other one doesn't take and dying. The trees are dying. His house is falling apart, right? Which household would you want to be a part of? Right? Yeah, as a man, as a woman, as a child, as a family member, you already know you're gonna pick the one that knows how to possess his household. Right? So a woman that actually has wisdom is going to see that and she's going to gravitate towards that. Whereas a woman who is in her feelings or her emotions all the time, it can get down with that, even though they'll claim to believe the Bible and things of that nature, right? Khan, Warrior's Dream. Nah, I hear them say slave. There are certain camps that I've come across before that, even being newer in the faith years and years ago, I would learn from and things of that nature, right? And they'll actually teach that a woman, a wife, is supposed to be like a slave. A wife is not supposed to speak. A wife is supposed to, whatever her husband does or whatever her husband says to do, she's got to do it right then and there, not saying taking it to the extreme, right? Because we all know that just like in Christianity, just like in Islam, just like in every form of religion, even in this truth, people who follow the Bible, there's going to be what they call, quote unquote, extremists, right? So, Khan, Isaiah Austin, that's in Deuteronomy 26 chapter, stating a woman is to be handed off to the brother-in-law. I actually been in Deuteronomy lately. Khan, Deuteronomy 26. And the thing is with this, right? It was a sister that asked this question, I believe. If a man dies, his wife is to marry his brother, right? The reason why is because, again, just like polygyny is all about family, Israelites, our people, were all about family as well. Okay? So if our people were all about family, then if a brother dies, what, the woman's just gonna get kicked out the family? Right? That's not how it works. And a lot of times when you read the scriptures in the so-called Old Testament, right, there's examples of when a woman was unmarried, it was a shame to her. When a woman didn't have children, it was a shame to her, right? So because of that, when the man would die, she would be added to the brother's household so that he can continue on with the seed line, and so that he can be a protection and a covering to that woman, right? Warrior's dream. It's much better to be a part of a multi-generational lineage, an abundant household, single sister out here trying to figure life out. I agree 110%. I may say they agree with that, but at the same time, your works show who you really are. Like I said earlier, right? The things that you do, the tests that you actually believe, right? And y'all would be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised, at how many females hit me up on a weekly basis with something along the lines of, I'm single and I'm confused and I don't know what to believe, and I don't know if I should either keep working or look for a husband, or I don't know if I should keep going to school or look for a husband, right? Because in reality, we know what the Most High's will. Man, that's one verse that I've posted many, many times because it seems like sisters just don't get it. But the will of the Most High for a woman is to be married and to have children and to guide her household. Because if she's not doing that, she's giving an opportunity to the enemy, to the adversary, to make her go off. Right? And like the brother said, they're out here trying to figure life out by themselves. This is why you have sisters that are trying to teach. There's sisters that claim to be in the truth, and then they try to teach and they try to correct grown men. When if you were actually in the spirit, you would understand that that's not something. I'll go to Deuteronomy 25, right? It says, this is First Timothy 5:14. I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So the Most High's will is for younger women to get married, to have children, and to guide their household. Why? Because plethora, millions and millions of examples of women who are not doing this and who are giving an occasion to the adversary to speak bad about them. Oh, look at her. She's partying, man. She don't know what she's doing. She's out here giving herself to all these different men. She's supposed to be married. She's supposed to be bearing children and guiding her house, right? Or you even have family members and friends talking about, oh yeah, man, she doesn't look. She's doing nothing with her life, right? She's not going to amount to nothing. Those are adversaries speaking reproachfully, right? There's a safety that comes with being married in the truth, having children, guiding your household, and that's what a lot of sisters don't understand. Unfortunate. Khan. I feel sorry for an extent of for should be married and not given an occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, right? And it comes to a point in time where if you read the next verse, First Timothy 5:15, it says, "For some are already turned aside after Satan." There comes a point in time where The Most High is like, okay, you're not gonna live out your will, and He can just turn you aside to Satan. He's like, all right, you know what? That's it, right? The tell them, right? It does not click with them. Okay, agreed, Karabo. When the rubber hits the road, their actions need to match what they are speaking. It all comes down. It's just like Yahweh Shai said. He said, "You know a tree by its what? By its fruits. A tree represents a man or a woman. Their fruits are their actions. So it doesn't matter in reality how much knowledge you have mentally, how much understanding you think you have. It's about wisdom, and wisdom is the application of knowledge. So like it says, if a man dies, his wife is to marry his brother, right? So let me get that real quick. I believe the brother said it's in Deuteronomy 25. But again, like I previously said, the reason why is for her to continue uh, the seed, right? Right, the seed line, to raise up a seed to keep continuing to build on his family, because you are the seed. This is Deuteronomy, and one of them die and have no child without unto a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go in unto her and take her to him to wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother unto her. So, meaning the the duty of a husband's brother is, hey, this my brother didn't raise up a seed to this woman. He died. It was his time to go. I'm gonna perform the duty, brother, and I'm gonna continue the seed line uh, through this woman, and also I'm gonna cover and protect and teach this woman, right? Because again, it goes back to the law, Exodus 21:10, where you have to be able to provide for her. First Timothy 5:8, you have to be able. It's taking a second to pop up, but it says, I I know poly is lawful, but what if the man is Proverbs 6:25, right? So the first thing I'll say is the first comment that I brought up was it's all about intention when it comes to polygyny, right? Most men's intention is not economic. And especially out in the world, I would say the majority of men, they or maybe not the majority, will quote unquote marry a woman just to have sex with her, right? And I remember when it was a long time ago. It was when the Fresh Prince of Bel Air came out, probably like late night. But in the case of a polygynous man who is doing it for the right intention, right? He's not going to be in that mindset of just doing it out of lust, right? This was the first comment I was talking about. It's all about intention when it comes to polygyny. Most men's intention is not economic, and me personally, at least, when I say that, economic means the building up of, of finances or self sufficiency, right? So, meaning a woman would not enter into my household, speaking personally, unless she brings some type of value to the household. Death, right? They lead down to the pits, they lead down to hell, is what it says. There are men that are like that, right? Our instructions from the Most High shows, right? He's only going to get sex out of it. So if a man, his intention, if a man's intention is not just sex, then he can reap more from it because he's going to reap what he sows, right? This is First Ezra's chapter 4, verse 26. Yea, many there be that have run out of their wits for women and become servants for their sakes. Men for women, right? So it has to be with the right intention. And that's what I'm gonna go ahead and finish with. I may do a part two of this if there's a good amount of views on it later on, or if the spirit moves me to do so. If not, then most high willing, this was edifying for anybody who's on here right now, anybody who may check it out later, to everybody who asked the questions, right? Uh, Shabbat or Salakia, Shalom. I was going to say Shabbat Shalom. Uh, y'all have stay in the spirit. I pray y'all moving in wisdom and not in emotions and feelings. To any sisters that may have checked this out, I know probably the majority of the questions were from sisters. It's like I said in one of my previous posts. There's never been a better time for you to be married, whether it be monogamous or polygynous. The will for the Most High is for you to be married. That's what you should be seeking to do over everything else, right? A man of the Most High, right? Like the brother just said, um, the brothers need to be with the Most High. With that, I say all praise to the Most High. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. Shalom to the 12 tribes scattered to the four corners of the earth.